Good evening. My name is Brenda Suter. I'm the director at Center for Spiritual Life in Delta. And tonight is our Wednesday night program called Book Shorts, where I take a metaphysical or a new thought book and present it to you by reading a portion of that book tonight. So I will be reading out of Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth book, and I have selected chapters that I'm going to read. The culmination of what I'm putting together tonight is summed up in experiencing or maybe entering the present moment through inner space. So I'm going to do a lot of reading. I'll be looking down most of the time, and I hope you enjoy. So here we go. All right. So I'm starting with the chapter 5 called The Pain Body. So I'd like to just give you a little bit of background of what he calls the pain body. So when we move forward and he touches on the pain body, you'll understand where he's coming from. And of course, this is just a little tiny taste of this book. So if you like what you're hearing and you're interested and you want more, I suggest that you check it out of the library, get it on your Kindle, or purchase the book. It is a fantastic resource for spiritual awakening. So here we go. The physical organism, your body, has its own intelligence, as does the organism of every other life form. And that intelligence reacts to what your mind is saying, reacts to your thoughts. So emotion is the body's reaction to your mind. The body's intelligence is, of course, an inseparable part of universal intelligence, one of its countless manifestations. It gives temporary cohesion to the atoms and molecules that make up your physical organism. It is the organizing principle behind the workings of all the organs of the body. The conversion of oxygen and food into energy, the heartbeat and circulation of the blood, the immune system that protects the body from invaders, the translation of sensory input into nerve impulses that are sent to the brain, decoded there, and reassembled into coherent inner picture of outer reality. All of these, as well as thousands of other simultaneously occurring functions, are coordinated perfectly by that intelligence. You don't run your body. The intelligence does. It also is in charge of the organism's responses to its environment. Although the body is very intelligent, it cannot tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. It reacts to every thought as if it were a reality. It doesn't know it is just a thought. To the body, a worrisome, fearful thought means I am in danger, and it responds accordingly, even though you may be lying in a warm and comfortable bed at night. The heart beats faster, muscles contract, breathing becomes rapid. There is a buildup of energy, but since the danger is only a mental fiction, the energy has no outlet. Part of it is fed back to the mind and generates even more anxious thought. The rest of the energy turns toxic and interferes with the harmonious functioning of the body. The ego is not only the unobserved mind, the voice in the head which pretends to be you, but also the unobserved emotions that are the body's reaction to what the voice in the head is saying. The voice of the ego continuously disrupts the body's natural state of well-being, Almost every human body is under a great deal of strain and stress, not because it is threatened by some external factor, but from within the mind. The body has an ego attached to it, and it cannot but respond to all the dysfunctional thought patterns that make up the ego. Thus, a stream of negative emotion accompanies the stream of incessant and compulsive thinking. In The Power of Now, which was his first book, I mentioned my observation that after two ducks get into a fight, which never lasts long, they will separate and float off in opposite directions. Then each duck will flap its wings vigorously a few times, thus releasing the surplus energy that built up during the fight. After they flap their wings, they float on peacefully, as if nothing had ever happened. If the duck had a human mind, it would keep the fight alive by thinking, by story making. This would probably be the duck's story. I don't believe what he just did. He came to within 5 inches of me. He thinks he owns this pond. He has no consideration for my private space. I'll never trust him again. Next time he'll try something else just to annoy me. I'm sure he's plotting something already, but I'm not going to stand for this. I'll teach him a lesson he won't forget. And on the mind spins its tales, still thinking and talking about it days, months, or years later. As far as the body is concerned, the fight is still continuing, and the energy it generates in response to all those thoughts is emotion, which in turn generates more thinking. This becomes the emotional thinking of the ego. You can see how problematic the duck's life would become if it had a human mind. But this is how most humans live all the time. No situation or event is ever really finished. The mind and the mind-made me and my story keep it going. Because of the human tendency to perpetuate old emotion, almost everyone carries in his or her energy field an accumulation of old emotional pain, which I call the pain body. We can, however, stop adding to the pain body that we already have. We can learn to break the habit of accumulating and perpetuating old emotion by flapping our wings, metaphorically speaking, and refrain from mentally dwelling on the past, regardless of whether something happened yesterday or 30 years ago. We can learn not to keep situations or events alive in our minds, but to return our attention continuously to the pristine, timeless, present moment, rather than be caught up in mental movie making. Our very presence then becomes our identity, rather than our thoughts and emotions. Nothing ever happened in the past that can prevent you from being present right now. And if the past cannot prevent you from being present now, what power does it have?
Yeah, what?
So this next chapter is chapter 6, called Breaking Free. The beginning of freedom from the pain body lies, first of all, in the realization that you have a pain body. Then, more important, in your ability to stay present enough, alert enough to notice the pain body in yourself as a heavy influx of negative emotion when it becomes active. When it is recognized, it can no longer pretend to be you and live and renew itself through you. It is your conscious presence that breaks the identification with the pain body. When you don't identify with it, the pain body can no longer control your thinking and so cannot renew itself anymore by feeding on your thoughts. The pain body in most cases does not dissolve immediately, but once you have severed the link between it and your thinking, the pain body begins to lose energy.
With what?
Loses energy.
Okay.
I directed the focus, sorry, starting over here. This is called presence. A woman in her 30s came to see me. As she greeted me, I could sense the pain behind her polite and superficial smile. She started telling me her story, and within 1 second, her smile changed into a grimace of pain. Then she began to sob uncontrollably. She said she felt lonely and unfulfilled. There was much anger and sadness. As a child, she had been abused by a physically violent father. I saw quickly that her pain was not caused by her present life circumstances, but by an extraordinarily heavy pain body. Her pain body had become the filter through which she viewed her life situation. She was not yet able to see the link between the emotional pain and her thoughts, being completely identified with both. She could not yet see that she was feeding the pain body with her thoughts. In other words, she lived with the burden of a deeply unhappy self. At some level, however, she must have realized that her pain originated within herself, that she was a burden to herself. She was ready to awaken, and this is why she had come. I directed the focus of her attention to what she was feeling inside her body and asked her to sense the emotion directly, instead of through the filter of her unhappy thoughts, her unhappy story. She said she had come expecting me to show her the way out of her unhappiness, not into it. Reluctantly, however, she did what I asked her to do. Tears were rolling down her face. Her whole body was shaking. At this moment, this is what you feel, I said. There is nothing you can do about the fact that at this moment, this is what you feel. Now, instead of wanting this moment to be different from the way it is, which adds more pain to the pain that is already there, is it possible for you to completely accept that this is what you feel right now? She was quiet for a moment. Suddenly, she looked impatient, as if she was about to get up, and said angrily, "No, I don't want to accept this." "Who is speaking?" I asked her. "You or the unhappiness in you? Can you see that your unhappiness about being unhappy is just another layer of unhappiness?" She became quiet again. "I am not asking you to do anything. All I'm asking is that you find out whether it is possible for you to allow those feelings to be there. In other words, and this may sound strange, if you don't mind being unhappy, what happens to the unhappiness? Don't you want to find out?" She looked puzzled briefly, and after a minute or so of sitting silently, I suddenly noticed a significant shift in her energy field. She said, "This is weird. I'm still unhappy, but now there is space around it. It seems to matter less." This was the first time I heard somebody put it like that there is space around my unhappiness. That space, of course, comes when there is inner acceptance of whatever you are experiencing in the present moment. Skipping to chapter 8, the discovery of inner space. According to an ancient Sufi story, there lived a king in some Middle Eastern land who was continuously torn between happiness and despondency. The slightest thing would cause him great upset or provoke an intense reaction, and his happiness would quickly turn into disappointment and despair. A time came when the king finally got tired of himself and of life, and he began to seek a way out. He sent for a wise man who lived in his kingdom and who was reputed to be enlightened. When the wise man came, the king said to him, "I want to be like you. Can you give me something that will bring balance, serenity, and wisdom into my life? I will pay any price you ask." The wise man said, "I may be able to help you, but the price is so great that your entire kingdom would not be sufficient payment for it. Therefore, it will be a gift to you if you will honor it." The king gave his assurances, and the wise man left. A few weeks later, he returned and handed the king an ornate box carved in jade. The king opened the box and found a simple gold ring inside. Some letters were inscribed on the ring. The inscription read, "This too will pass." "What is the meaning of this?" asked the king. The wise man said, "Wear this ring always. Whatever happens, before you call it good or bad, touch this ring and read the inscription. That way, you will always be at peace." This too will pass. What is it about these simple words that makes them so powerful? Looking at it superficially, it would seem while those words may provide some comfort in a bad situation, they would also diminish the enjoyment of the good things in life. Don't be too happy because it won't last. This seems to be what they are saying when applied in a situation that is perceived as good. The full import of these words becomes clear when we consider them in the context of two other stories that we encountered earlier. The story of the Zen master whose only response was always, "Is that so?" shows the good that comes through inner non-resistance to events, that is to say, being at one with what happens. Those words inscribed on the ring are not telling you that you should not enjoy the good in your life, nor are they merely meant to provide some comfort in times of suffering. They have a deeper purpose, to make you aware of the fleetingness of every situation, which is due to the transience of all forms, good or bad. When you become aware of the transience of all forms, your attachment to them lessens, and you disidentify from them to some extent. Being detached does not mean that you cannot enjoy the good that the world has to offer. In fact, you enjoy it more. Once you see and accept the transience of all things and the inevitability of change, you can enjoy the pleasures of the world while they last, without fear of loss or anxiety about the future. When you are detached, you gain a higher vantage point from which to view the events in your life instead of being trapped inside them. The recognition that this too will pass brings detachment, and with detachment, another dimension comes into your life. Inner space.
What was it?
Inner space.
Okay.
When you are no longer totally identified with forms, consciousness, who you are, becomes freed from its imprisonment in form. This freedom is the arising of inner space. It comes as a stillness, a subtle peace deep within you, even in the face of something seemingly bad. This too will pass. Suddenly, there is space around the event. When the dimension of space is lost, or rather not known, the things of the world assume an absolute importance, a seriousness and heaviness that in truth they do not have. Most people's lives are cluttered up with things, material things, things to do, things to think about. Their lives are like the history of humanity, which Winston Churchill defined as one damn thing after another. One damn thing after another. Their minds are filled up with the clutter of thoughts, one thought after another. This is the dimension of object consciousness that is many people's predominant reality. And that is why their lives are so out of balance. Object consciousness needs to be balanced by space consciousness for sanity to return to our planet and for humanity to fulfill its destiny. The arising of space consciousness is the next stage in the evolution of humanity. Space consciousness means that in addition to being conscious of things, which always come down to sense perceptions, thoughts, and emotions, there is an undercurrent of awareness. Awareness implies that you are not only conscious of things, objects, but you are also conscious of being conscious. If you can sense an alert inner stillness in the background while things happen in the foreground, that's it. This dimension is there in everyone, but most people are completely unaware of it. Sometimes I point to it by saying, "Can you feel your own presence?" So that's all I'm going to read tonight out of this. And my question to you is, can you feel your own presence? So that's something to think about. If you like the book, you might read a little bit more. I also know that Eckhart Tolle has a lot of YouTubes on YouTube channel where you can listen to little portions of his work. He's also been a guest on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday as well. So check out some of those YouTubes. And that's it for tonight. I am going to close this with a prayer. So I'll give you just a moment to get settled in and relaxed a little bit as I close with this treatment. So as I take this time to sit and be still and turn my attention within as I loosen my grip on the outer world, I breathe, I relax, and I begin to find my center space of calm. I can put aside for now my worries or doubts, my challenges, or my non-stop stream of mental activity that seems to always accompany me. I lay these distractions down and I focus in on my breath of life, the one life breathing me. There is only one life living right now. This one life moves in and through and as all humanity, maintaining and sustaining it. This one life is the essence underlying all things, the truth of being beneath it all. It is the core of all humanity, the intelligence directing all humanity, the wisdom and peace within all humanity, the universal divine energy expressed from within and manifested as individual. The diversity we experience is sourced in the unity, the one. Because there is only one life, I have no life of my own apart from this one energy. My life is the life of the infinite invisible presence that we call God or Spirit or Father or Divine or Creator. Invisible, infinite, intelligent. This one life contains all the answers. It contains all of the information needed for life to reveal itself to us as the one truth, gently and smoothly appearing in our life as divine grace. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. I keep my mind on the wholeness and perfection of the one life, everywhere present. Within the energetic pattern of God is the perfect pattern of me. As that energy, it is whole, it is perfect, it is complete in spirit, in truth. I accept that divine pattern of love in action as my truth right now. I recognize I and my Father are one, and the one is in charge of my life right now. As I allow this knowing to drop from my mind into my heart space and expand, I naturally feel gratitude pour forth from within me, and it blesses my life with the manifestation of peace, prosperity, and wholeness for all. Thank you, Spirit. I am so grateful as I know my words are truth, and as I speak them, I release the intention of unity, peace, wholeness, and abundance into the world, helping to create a world that works for everyone. And so it is. And now I breathe and smile, and I let it be. Good night.
Very nice.